Hazel Mason FRPS. So what's it like then to be on the Licentiate panel?
I love being on the Licentiate panel. It was a real honour to be asked in the first place, but it's allowed me to be able to work with people and to help people, and then to see a fantastic quality of work for the most part, and to work with the RPS in promoting the standards and trying to encourage people with their photography.
Was it nerve-wracking, talking in front of an audience?
I think it was to begin with. I remember my very first time I was absolutely terrified, and I think everybody knew that because they gave me a round of applause. But I think with practice it gets easier, and you begin to format in your mind how you're going to assess a body of work and how you're going to assess an image. And so you can formulate what you're going to say in advance to a sort of structure, which makes it a lot easier to get going. And I think as long as you accept that you're looking at work, you're amongst people who've got a similar interest as you have, then what you're trying to do is help and portray your passion for it and your views.
So the 10 images go up on the wall, You're asked to speak. How do you go about assessing a panel like that?
I think an assessment starts when you're first sitting there, and you see the images go up, you see how they're presented, how they're mounted, how they're laid out, and you get an immediate impression as to whether the photographer's taken time and trouble in putting together what they perceive as their best work for this distinction. You're then looking at the general picture of the body of 10, the 11th image, to see whether it balances in a panel, balances in its colour and its tonality, and whether you can see this is somebody's work. Even at Licentiate standard, where you're looking for variety and you're looking for different techniques, you can see that this is a body of work that fits. And then I think it's the closer inspection that's important, to look at the details, because often from the back of a room, and even from a viewing distance, you can't really see the details in some of these images. And some images are so good these days that there's some tiny little nuances that you don't pick up until you're close up to the panel. But obviously it's also there that you can assess technique, and you can assess lighting, and you can assess the digital work that someone may or may not have done. And that's what we're looking at L, not only the variety of subject matter and the lighting, but have they executed that to a high standard. And it's very much about the technique and the execution of that.
But I suppose we should get this in perspective. This is the first level of distinctions, and you're looking really, as far as I can understand, for ability with the camera skills. We're not looking for, the top-rated photography, are we?
No, we're looking for good grasp of a camera so that you can understand depth of field and shutter speed, different lighting conditions, different lens use, for example, nighttime photography, daytime photography, just showing that you can do 10 pictures that are different. You don't have to include those types of images. You can use black and white, you can use colour, but it's showing that you can basically hold the bit of kit in your hand and produce 10 reasonable to good standard of images that then sit together as the body of work.
Now, people can get advice from anyone, their own camera club or a friend or whatever, but what would you say, how important is it to go to an RPS advisory day?
I think it's proving more and more essential to go to an advisory day if you can, and if not, to seek advice online from somebody who's sitting on the current panel. I think we are assessed throughout, we are advised throughout, we are monitored throughout, or at least I feel I am being, that we're giving consistent advice. And with technology changing, the standards do appear to be getting harder because people can do more with their cameras, and I think it's important to receive advice from a current panel member who is familiar with that standard, is getting the feedback from other panel members, and it's only by doing that you maintain the standards. I think it also shows you what's expected, so you know how to lay a panel out, you know how to mount a panel, you know what's meant by panelling of the images, so you're putting them in an order that's acceptable. So I think it is pretty essential to go to one of these events if you can make it.
In the RPS guidelines, they talk about criteria. So what are you looking for with an L panel?
The criteria are laid out very clearly for L, and we're looking to mark a panel or to assess a panel very much to those criteria. It's basically divided up into 4 groups: how someone's presented a panel, how they've taken those pictures, how they've manipulated or made those images essentially, and then we're also assessing the seeing ability, and so the photographer input and the lighting chosen, whether it's appropriate, whether it's cropped. So there's quite strict criteria and quite strict areas that we're looking at in a licentiate, and it's really got to be successful in those areas. It might not be a panel that we like. It's not about whether we like it or whether we take those photographs. It's assessed to a standard, and if it passes that standard, then it will be awarded the distinction. And everyone's got different ways of making a photograph, be it black and white, be it digitally, be it travel genre, a nature genre. So everyone brings a different skill set, and it's that skill set altogether that marks to these criteria.
All in all then, the L panel, good for you, good for photographers, helps with photography.
I love the L panel.
Hazel Mason, thank you very much indeed.